Hello, good day wherever you are. We have people from several countries, so I'm not going to say good morning or good evening. This is Bipin Shah. I'm the CEO of Kovair, and we are happy to present this webinar on Bi-Modal DevOps. And presenting to all of you will be Akshay Sharma, who will do a slide presentation on what is Bi-Modal DevOps. And following that, we'll have a demo by one of our solutions engineers on what does it mean in real practice. And then we'll open it up to Q&A. Let me briefly introduce you to Akshay. Originally a Canadian, now makes his home in Florida. Comes with significant background in telecommunication software. And he's now a broad technologist, having worked for 10 years for Gartner as an analyst. Prior to his consulting work that he does now, involved in several technologies, including DevOps, DevSecOps, etc. He has recently become a Kovair technical advisor, and this is the second webinar he'll do for Kovair. And you already know the subject, so without further taking up time, let us get started. So Akshay, take it from here.
Thank you, Bipin, and thank you, everyone. I will briefly go through the slides. As you know, Kovair is a leader in integrated lifecycle management and DevOps tools and trusted by many companies. I will skip my bio, so thank you. So today's objectives will be talking about engineering transformation, about how you migrate from Bi-Modal IT to this new DevOps world of concurrent multimodal IT, and how you address the challenges. So we'll discuss about the how you achieve this, and what are the implications for business leaders at the end. And as Bipin mentioned, live demos as well to show it in reality. So without a further ado, let's jump into it. So as you know, there's been a lot of talk in the IT world about Bi-Modal IT. In fact, the former analyst firm I was at Gartner, published over 100 documents in the past 6-7 years on Bi-Modal IT, where they mentioned, mode 1 being a predictable, stable, and linear development lifecycle-based approach. That's the traditional waterfall-based approach. And they said Bi-Modal mode 2 is the agile DevOps-based approach, which is relatively unstable, relatively nonlinear, it's cloud-based, where the mantra exists of fail fast, recover fast, and if successful, go to market quickly. Where the Web 2.0 and Web 3.0 companies are very agile. And as we've seen, they bring technologies in very quickly, they test it very quickly, they operationalize the metrics very quickly in the cloud, and if it fails, they discard it quickly, they decommission it quickly, but if it's successful, then they launch in wire speed, literally across all their data centers, and go to market very quickly. Now, we've seen that this was a good approach initially. Back in 2012, when Gartner published on Bi-Modal IT, this was a great approach to take. However, now in 2019, almost 2020, we've seen that this approach has some issues. We've seen that Bi-Modal IT inherently means multiple teams, two separate teams, siloed, two processes, two platforms, two sets of metrics, two sets of tools, two sets of resources with different ways of thinking, and somehow the organization is supposed to connect all the dots and converge this in the end. So in other words, achieving bimodal IT with agility comes at a cost. We have silos, we have impediments to innovation, we have legacy back office things, but we have also next-gen aspects, and somehow this all comes together. But as we know, in any organization where you have two different teams, two different metrics, two different goals, you may also have team conflicts. So what we're going to talk about is how you solve all this with concurrent multimodal IT using DevOps, but also application lifecycle management tools within the same framework, within cross-functional teams, leading to more coherence within the teams. So how do we get there? Well, let's talk about the drivers first. What I've seen in my experience is in the legacy approach, you would have engineering silos. You would have the next-gen team working in the cloud. You would have the legacy team working on, let's say, on-prem servers or on mainframes, and we would have engineering silos. We would have operational issues. Typically in the telecom world, we would have swivel chair management of issues where people would, on the swivel chairs, move from one engineering station doing network management of one silo, then swivel chair to another engineering station to manage another silo. And this led to basically organizational issues. It would also lead to conflicts. You would have mirrored organizations around the network, around the computers, around the silos themselves, which meant everything's inflexible. Everything is pipelined, architected as stovepipes from the ground up, and a lot of issues would happen that are more manual, more reactive, as opposed to what we're getting to now is the afterworld, is the future, where we're getting to cross-functional development and deployment teams. Hopefully a single pane of glass in operations with greater support, greater visibility, and going from reactive to hopefully proactive and then eventually predictive analytics. So everything becomes analytics driven, everything becomes policy based, and eventually you get to AI ops, artificial intelligence with machine learning, which we'll hopefully talk about in a future discussion as well. This leads to flexible applications, flexible networks, more agility, and hopefully newer business models result from this. So we're going from a world where everything is rigid and controlled to now supported and enabled with newer innovation. From one size fits all or one process fits all within one team and a separate process and tools in another team, we're going to go to agile and multimodal delivery. From project-centric projects to product and service and eventually customer-centric services. Where IT, we're going from IT as a cost center, hopefully to IT as a value center. And then going from manual approaches, everything is handcrafted with leap of faith assumptions, to hopefully closed loop automation where we're getting real world analytics, applying predictive intelligence to it, and eventually orchestrating and automating this with closed loop automation where everything becomes more predictive and zero touch automation occurring in the future. So what is needed to getting there? Basically this is a multifaceted transition. It's organizational, it's tools-oriented, platform-oriented. So how do we get there? Well, the first step, we need to break down the silos of the past organizationally. We need to have flatter, more cross-functional teams. We need to retrain the legacy folks to learn about newer tools like Kovair and Jenkins and all the DevOps platforms that are out there. We need to champion also the legacy process-driven world. We still have to have reliability, resiliency, testing, all the metrics that have been in place with application lifecycle management processes of the past, but now bring it to the newer world that's more real-time and event-driven. We need to form teams with both an adaptive mindset, with DevOps styles of deployment, where we're thinking about innovation, we're thinking about open APIs, we're thinking about open source even, if need be. We need to have now orchestration frameworks for services using middleware platforms like APIs that are out there, agile development tools, low-code or no-code principles where you have frameworks of platforms, even software bus middleware with connectors and APIs to third-party systems, real-time diagnostics and real-time analytics to drive change. And so hopefully this becomes part of the tool chain as we move forward. We're going to have cloud applications with virtualization as well. But we'll also have the legacy systems as needed. You know, usually, even in the next-gen environments I've seen, there's always some legacy CRM, legacy billing systems, legacy maybe HR systems that still aren't going to go away anytime soon. You know, I mean, they're tried and true, they've been tested, they've been verified, and it's no use just replacing everything from day one. We're going to have a new distributed team approach. We're going to have CTIO, that's a CTO and CIO team members, but also work with the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer, where we become more of a value-add business unit. Rather than just being a cost center, IT should be a part of the food chain of the organization and maybe even share in some of the growth aspects that go on in the business. So now we cultivate a new mindset where business becomes part of the mindset. You know, what are the business values we bring as IT participants? So a lot of new changes are going to happen, and we need to retire some of the legacy mindsets that impede innovation, and now we embrace newer change as we move forward. So some of the platforms are companies like Kovair, where you have a lot of the legacy application lifecycle, you know, requirements manageability, planning, coding, building, testing, all of the release management, configuration management solutions within the workflow. But within these legacy ALM, application lifecycle management processes and workflows, you also have sprinkled in the DevOps platforms as well, that, you know, the GitHubs of the world, the Jenkins of the world. So you have a mixture of both, you know, the virtualization platforms of VMware as well as the legacy platforms as well. With a lot of the connectors with the Kovair Omnibus, you have connectors to existing solutions that are out there, both the legacy, you know, world as well as the next-gen world. And with Data Lake platforms, you're going to see common repositories of data with shared analytics that could be then leveraged by, let's say, predictive analytics tools as well. So part of this is a new mindset where data is shared across all the teams. You're going to have more of a team-based approach, common APIs, common analytics, common goals within the same team. And the teams will now work together both with legacy application lifecycle management frameworks as well as the DevOps solutions as well. And so what we end up having is a broad IT transformation strategy coupled with a culture of organizational improvement with newer tools, newer APIs, newer platforms, even open source if needed, in a constructive manner, employing DevOps with IT analytics to measure and diagnose issues quickly, but also have the resiliency, testing methodologies, and processes of the past to make sure things are adhered to as well. So now, how do we get to this concurrent multimodal IT mindset? You know, it's a lot of change happening concurrently. So first of all, the operating model. Everything is done concurrently. It's not siloed or sequential or linear. Things are done in parallel. A lot of it is analytics driven. It's experience led. It's multidisciplinary. It's maybe relying on closed loop automation where you're getting the analytics in real time and reorchestrating newer solutions on the fly. You can tune the network with software-defined networking. You can tune the applications in the cloud with newer workflow engines. And so things are becoming more automated using predictive analytics. And hopefully you have governance models built in with policies, who can do what, when, and where, and why, and everything is tracked and logged in an operational mindset. And hopefully there's even a revenue mindset too, that what you're doing is building value to the company and that's returning revenue, or maybe having some operational savings, and you can then cost justify everything. So the mindset also has now changed from, the silos of the past to more of a product management mindset, where maybe every product manager acts like a mini GM, like a general manager of that product, and has maybe P&L, profit and loss, and maybe even has bonuses tied to what they're doing. So it's a different type of cultural mindset where you're basically recommending to people to think of the business aspect as well. And you're now also employing more of a crowdsourced mindset too. So if there's open platforms, open source, bring it into the organization as well, but making sure that you also have the legacy rigor of testing, verification, validation, and quality control that we had in the past as well. So it's a new methodology of iterative learning, more of a Agile and DevOps, none of this silos of the past, none of this, let's dump it to, offshore development. Now there is no shore. Everyone is working on the same page as the same team. There is no shore. Everyone is near, everyone is far, everyone is available. And you have more of a value-based focus. You improve the communications between the teams because everyone is sharing on the same common platforms. The DevOps-oriented mindset of continuous integration, continuous delivery, well, now you add in continuous testing, and you have the QA mindset of the application lifecycle management approach. And you bring in, in this new world of security and privacy first, well, DevOps becomes DevSecOps, where you also have this mindset of, who can do what, when, and where, tracking everything from a privacy point of view. And then if the data and information is all secure, then you also have a security mindset built in. The idea is now it's multimodal, it's concurrent, and you're using common APIs, common connectors, software bus architectures, connecting the dots and breaking down the silos of the past. From an architectural point of view, there's even changes in how we think. The platform, we think of more from an end user point of view. Not only the end user from a customer, but also the end user of the organizations that we support. So maybe one department is a tool platform provider or an architecture provider to another department. And we think in a modularized API-driven approach. Microservices can come in where we're not trying to solve world hunger from day one. We take a modular approach and solve many steps along the way. API strategies become commonplace where we think of common APIs. We think about, the concept of an abstract data type and making sure the API is rigorous and open so that other departments can use it, and then manage these APIs. And then we tie in application, APM performance management with network performance management if there's latency issues or network issues across the cloud to on-prem to even, if there need be, mainframes. And then we also have CEM, customer experience monitoring. So we take a holistic approach. It's not just one metric, or the application is great, but the network is down. Or the network is great, but the customer experience is horrible. So we have to think holistically. All the metrics count, and we migrate with that mindset. So this holistic approach, which is both organizational and technical, is essential as we transition from the legacy to the newer DevOps-based systems. But we may not even transition. We may have both concurrently working as well, and that's okay too. So now, what are the implications for business leaders? So CTOs and CIOs really need to think holistically and consider newer approaches to connect the dots. Next steps? Well, harmonize and synchronize the goals and strategies within your team's business initiatives. The legacy platforms can be virtualized. You know, there are tools out there that can take those platforms and bring it to the cloud. There are platforms that, you know, can even maybe revector with newer APIs. You know, there's API companies out there. There's a lot of middleware out there, and then there's a lot of open source solutions that are validated and rigorously tested and deployable today. So the idea is to deliver seamless value to the clients in this digital business transformation project. Of course, we need to retrain teams with cross-functional mindsets, with concurrent multimodal tools like tools from Kovair, with the processes and methods that go with it. There's going to be newer changes in how we operationalize things. We enter this new agile business with innovative thinking. And soon we will see that successful companies will be those that can execute with this newer mindset of newer solutions, newer business models that create value and offer holistic solutions as opposed to the pipeline silos of the past. So from this, I would transition to the Kovair team, and they can take it from here to talk about how this can be done in reality. So I've handed off the ball to Kovair.
Antanu will be doing the product demo now. He will show that whatever Akshay said, how those things can be achieved using Kovair products.
So Amit, can we do a quick, snapshot on the products before the demo starts?
Yeah. So
just very briefly go through this slide.
Okay. So as you can see that this slide basically shows all the Kovair products that we have. So the first product is Kovair DevOps, which we will demonstrate today. So from Kovair, we have a intelligent DevOps solution, which is an enterprise solution, and just right from the code check-in to deployment, it is a one-click automation. So as soon as the code gets checked in, after doing some code analysis, immediately it gets submitted and the pipeline gets triggered, from where you can do the automatic deployment first into staging and then into production. Then we have the next product, which is Kovair Omnibus. It is basically a SOA architected proprietary ESB from Kovair, which is currently having an integrations with 80 plus commercial tools coming from different domains of ALM, PLM, PPM, as well as ITSM. Then we have Kovair Quick Sync, which is basically nothing but a standalone solution, standalone application, and it is a one-stop solution for all your data migration needs. So any organization, when you want to move the data from one tool to the other, or when you are changing a tool, one major problem that comes into play is that how we move the existing data to the new tool, and Quick Sync is the solution for that. Then we have Kovair ALM Studio, which takes care of the end-to-end phases of application lifecycle management. So it's a central web-based platform where you can manage the end-to-end lifecycle and get the cross-tool database traceability, reports, and everything. And then the next product is Kovair Data Lake, which basically is a central data store where you can collect the data from all the software tools that are there in your organization, and then hook it with any business intelligence tool, that is the BI tool, through the APIs that are exposed, and can get all advanced predictive analytics or all types of analytics that is required by your business. So that is a brief about all the products from Kovair. So now, Shantanu, you can go ahead and show the actual demo of Kovair DevOps.
Thank you, Amit, for the overview on Kovair products. Hello, everyone. And I thank you all for joining this session. Okay, so Even before we get into the live demo, let me take you through a short animated flow on what we are going to showcase you in today's session. So we will start our story with a set of prioritized backlogs in our Kovair Agile solution. And while planning a sprint as a team, we will select a set of backlogs and add them to the sprint for implementation. And once we approve that, approve the sprint, the Kovair workflow will trigger the development process. And using the Kovair Omnibus plugin for Eclipse, we will expose those backlogs to our developers working in the Eclipse IDE, based on which the developers will work on the backlogs, make changes on their code projects, and once the changes are being done, the developers will perform a static code analysis on SonarQube. Based on the analysis, various metrics that are being derived, like the documentation metrics, the general metrics, etc., will be extracted and sent to the Kovair Omnibus platform. Finally, the developer checks in the code into GitHub, which is being used as the source control. And once check-in is done, a series of events gets generated from GitHub, like the change set, the code files, the relationship between them. And while checking in the file, you can also mention the backlog ID in the comment section so that you get an end-to-end traceability from the Kovair Central Repository. And finally, once all of the above is done, the initiation of DevOps actually takes place. The Kovair workflow will automatically trigger the pipeline in staging, and this particular pipeline consists of 3 different jobs. The first being done by Jenkins for build, followed by deployment with Chef, and finally the automation testing by Selenium. And as this pipeline executes, the Jenkins does its jobs. It fetches the information from Kovair Omnibus and pushes it to the Kovair Central Repository again for an end-to-end traceability. Once the staging pipeline is successful and it's completed, the production pipeline is triggered by the Kovair workflow, and without any manual handoffs, the deployment is being done in production. So that's about the overall scenario that we will be showcasing you in today's demo. And now, without further wasting any time, let me dive into the live product demo and show you things in real time. So let me start the product demo by logging into our Kovair Agile solution, which is also the same platform that is being used for Kovair DevOps as well. So let me log in as Sam Duen and start working on the set of prioritized backlogs. So as soon as we log in into the application, we land into our home page, and on the left hand side you'll be seeing the navigation panel that appears, and on this navigation panel is the backlog store, which consists of the list of backlogs. So let me quickly get into this list of backlogs. Select a particular view. Let's say I select the backlog prioritization view, and from here the planning actually gets started. So for the planning, let's say now as a team, say Omega, while planning a particular sprint, we will choose the backlogs to be worked upon for a particular sprint. So for that, let me get into this planning section and sprints. And I have a set of sprints defined, and let me take the sprint 5.0 and associate a set of backlogs to it. So here is my sprint details. It's linked to a particular release, and the sprint duration is around 4 weeks. So I get into the backlog section quickly, and from the action menu on the right, I click on link existing and select few backlogs from here. Let's say I select this override of automatic PTZ and link it to this particular sprint. Now, as soon as this backlog is being linked to the sprint, it triggers the Kovair workflow, which takes care of a set of activities one after the other. So let me go back to my backlog list, and if I go to my process view, it would show me that this particular item, 318 override of automatic PTZ, so there is a task being generated out of it. So you can also see that there is a email notification in real time that has been sent to the reviewer, which asks the reviewer to review the backlog associated to the sprint and approve it. So now what I'll do is, as a reviewer, I'll click on this link and get into the Kovair application and log in with the credentials of a reviewer. So let's say Robin Parker is a reviewer, and let me now log in as Robin. And as soon as I log in, I land up into the details of the sprint that I'm supposed to review and approve. It will also show me the list of backlogs that are being associated with it. So before approving this particular sprint, let me show you what actually happened in the background and what triggered this set of activities. So if I go back to my previous tab, and as I already mentioned that there is a task for review already coming up, we can also get into the process view. So if I get into the process diagram, so this is being defined from the end users mode, and this is the Kovair workflow designer where we can actually define the Kovair workflow or process. So the yellow ones that are particular that are particularly the activities defined, and these are a set of activities that have been defined for this particular process, but worth mentioning that you can also design any such workflow with n number of activities, and it is absolutely customizable and can be customized to any complexity without having to write a single piece of code. So currently my process stands in the review task where the activity is to review a particular sprint and approve it. So let me get into this review and get into the sprint, edit it, and go for the approval. So let me go ahead and set the approval status to approved and save it. And the moment I approve the sprint, my task gets automatically completed. And if I now switch back to my process diagram and give it a refresh, you'll see that the first task has already been completed, and which initiates the next task, that is performing the development. So now let me play the role of a developer, and as a developer I get into my Eclipse environment. So let me get into Eclipse. So this is my Eclipse environment I'll be working in, and before I proceed to the code changes, let me show you another powerful feature of Kovair Omnibus. So where Kovair provides a powerful plugin for Eclipse, which helps in getting the list of backlogs that are being generated in real time directly from the Eclipse environment. So as a developer, I don't need to hop around into different tools. I don't need to log in into Kovair to look into the details of the backlogs. So these are my backlogs that I currently have. I can just give it a quick refresh. I click on Go. And we are working on, oops, I just clicked on the wrong record. So we will be working on the record 318. So let me go ahead and modify this backlog. So as a developer, I'll be modifying the status of this particular backlog and set it to development started. So I go and set it as development started, and all these fields that you see are directly fetched from the Kovair interface. All these fields are available in Kovair, and as soon as I save it, the same would again get replicated in Kovair as well. So I save this, and once that is done, I can get into my code project for the changes, for making the changes for this particular backlog. So I get into demo project.java, which we'll be considering for this demo. And let's say, since I'm working for this particular backlog, I won't make much changes, but I would just make a small change on this comment. I would say that this is a change as a check-in for the backlog 318. And once my development is done, let's say I save it. And now as a developer, I would perform a set of static code analysis using SonarQube. So what I'll do is I will invoke an ant build. So if I get into my package explorer back, so here is my sonarbuild.xml. So I'll invoke an ant build to get my metrics from SonarQube. So I get into run as an ant build. And as the build is done, it will fetch the metrics from SonarQube into Kovair, which again includes the general metrics, the complexity, and the documentation metrics. And now once the build is successful, I'll go ahead and check in the changes to GitHub source control. So for that, I right click on the code, I get into team, commit, and here I would mention the backlog ID, that is 318, that we were working on, and say commit and push. So the reason for specifying this particular backlog ID is that when I receive the change set, the code file, the relations, I also, with the Kovair business rules, we can automatically set up the traceability with the backlog to the respective changes or the change sets and code files that are being done. So that would allow us to trace the backlog to the associated change sets, the associated code files, and so on. So as far as my development part is concerned, I'm done. Now I will go back to the Kovair platform, and we can see that how the process further proceeds. So now if I give it a quick refresh, so I'll be able to see that my second activity, that is perform the development, has been completed, which actually initiates the Jenkins pipeline in staging. So we can see that this Jenkins pipeline has already triggered, and this is where you actually get the essence of DevOps. So where without any manual intervention, the Jenkins pipeline gets triggered. And also, if I get into my Jenkins pipeline view in this Jenkins console, so my last pipeline was 1277, and if I give it a quick refresh, I should be able to see that there is another pipeline execution being done in real time. Not only from Jenkins, but we also do have provision to look into this pipeline execution from Kovair itself. So let me show you that. So if I get into my build management and the pipeline execution, I'll be able to see that same pipeline getting executed right from the Kovair interface. So as you can see that this is my pipeline that has got initiated, and my build job is completed in staging, and we are running with the deployment job. And once that has been completed, we go for the test job. And finally, this once this test job gets completed, it would initiate the next activity, that is the activity for production, the pipeline for production. So this is going to take some time, and for the sake of time, let me dive into the reports that we actually offer from this DevOps platform. So I get into my dashboards to show you the capability of the reporting capabilities from this Kovair DevOps platform. So we will talk about some of the metrics like the lead time and the processing time, lead time versus processing time metrics that we have. So the lead time is actually the latency between the initiation and the execution of an activity, whereas the processing time is the actual time of that activity. I mean, the time that took for this activity to get completed in actual. So as you can see that there is a total lead time and a total processing time, but we can also have it based on each of these pipelines that we have defined. So what is the lead time and the processing time? So we get varying numbers for all of these. Also, we can have different other types of reports as well. So if I get into my DevOps dashboard, so we can show you a distribution of the deployment frequency over time. So how often we are deploying the code and getting new code in the hands of our customers. Also, we have a distribution of the percentage of the past and failed deployments over a period of time. And then we have a distribution of the change in user volume. So the number of users signing up, interacting with my service and generating traffic. So as new users sign up in my infrastructure, that's how we can actually handle the demand. And finally, we have the distribution by percentage of change in customer ticket volume. So this actually is a number of alerts generated by customers to indicate the issues in the service. And this is a basic indicator for customer satisfaction. So that was about the dashboards and the reports that we intended to show you. And I think that brings us towards the end of this demo.
Okay.
So I guess the demo is done now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's, Amit, open it up for questions.
Yeah, sure. So Akshay, I think there is a question for you. So the question is that when you talk about this bimodal IT or multimodal IT, how is it contributing towards value stream?
So as we've seen, the metrics are brought right up front. In fact, we have a customer ticket metric right there in front of us in this demo. And so bringing the customer's metrics right into the development mindset early on, I think, allows you to be more customer oriented. And, customer satisfaction scores. We're starting to see net performer scores. Even executives, some of their bonuses are tied to these type of metrics. So having, customer-oriented metrics earlier on in the process, I think, is always going to create better value-oriented mindset within an organization.
Thanks, Akshay. So the second question that I can see is that this my bimodal IT, does it contribute more towards increasing the velocity or increasing the quality?
I would say both. So, I mean, it's one of these cases where the DevOps having this quality lifecycle management approach of rigorously well-documented, well-defined traceability, manageability of test cases and metrics, bringing that into the cloud world is going to lead to better quality, and then vice versa, bringing cloud concepts of agile delivery into the application lifecycle management world of the legacy systems, will bring agility to that world. So I think you're getting the best of both worlds here.
Okay. So the next question is, I think, for Shantanu. So Shantanu, the next question is that where you showed the pipeline. So if there are multiple pipelines running across multiple projects in Jenkins, is there any way can we view it in Kovair? That's the question.
Yeah, to answer this question, Amit, yeah, we have the provision to view those pipelines from Kovair. We can bring in those pipelines into Kovair, and as and when the execution, as I already showed, whenever the execution takes place, we can actually get into those pipeline execution to view the details of those pipelines in real time. We also have a provision to get into the Jenkins console. So this actually fetches the data directly from the Jenkins console and shows us the entire details of what job is being triggered and what's going on in the background.
Okay, thank you. So the next question that comes is that, okay, in the demo we saw that how from development to deployment everything is automated. But can Kovair Omnibus connect the phases which comes before development also? Integrate all the other phases like the service desk and all those.
Yes.
Yes, again, to answer your question, yes, Amit. So since we have Kovair Omnibus, with the Kovair Omnibus integration platform, we can actually connect various tools from different domains, and thereby we can actually set up an integration between different tools that even comes before the development starts.
Okay. I think, yeah, so that covers up all the questions as of now. Okay, so another question that comes is that how can we learn more about Kovair offerings shown today?
So Amit, this is more a question for you, but
yeah.
I would suggest 2-3 things. First of all, download whatever literature we have on our website and read some of the blogs that we have. And next thing is, connect with us at sales@kovair.com, and we'll be happy to assign an applications engineer who, for example, like the one who just did the demo, to answer any detailed questions you may have.
Yeah. So I think, Bipin, that's all the questions.
What I meant to say is it'll be more than a salesperson. It'll be more like a technical person that'll be responding to your questions.
Yeah. So I think, Bipin, that's it. That's all the questions that we had for today.
Okay. So again, this is Bipin Shah thanking all of you for joining us today. And Akshay, thank you for all your thought-provoking presentation. And thanks for the demo. So we are at your service. Call on us at any time. Thank you.